Hi, and welcome to the Wayne Lamos podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Lamos, and we are starting off with a brand new mini series, Understanding and Not Judging the Angry Man. This is episode 1, What is Anger and Understanding Mechanisms of Anger. Here we start with a general definition where anger is a natural reaction built in a person's nervous system, the flight and fight response. Anger is one of the first emotions which can be recognized in newborn babies. Here, the neurotransmitter norepinephrine has a role to play. It is a stress hormone released into the blood when the brain perceives a stressful event which occurs. So what's really happening here? Well, let's find this out through a few steps. First, I'd like you to understand the thought flowchart. So in your thought flowchart, you have step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and step 5. Step 1 is your input data. Step 2 is your subconscious or your brain. Step 3 is your memory. Step 4 is your conscious mind, that's you. And step 5 is action. In step 1 input data, you have auditory, visual, and touch and smell. In step 2 subconscious/brain, you have to remember that the subconscious has the mind of a 4 to 6 year old and will act as such in reaction or response. In step 3 memory, the subconscious checks and evaluates memories in order to respond or react. In step 4, it sends the same as a decision to the conscious mind. In step 5, the conscious mind takes an action, and that is the thought process chart from sensory to action. Now that we understood what a thought process chart is, let's try and do an overlay of that with the biological process. Please note that for the biological processes over here, I will only be using initials for some of them, but you will find full names for the neurotransmitters in descriptions. So now let's understand the biological process. So when the brain perceives something as dangerous, the hypothalamus releases the hormone CRH, which sends a signal to the pituitary gland, which releases the hormone ACTH, which then sends a signal to the adrenal glands, which release the hormone cortisol. Cortisol regulates the HPA axis. HPA standing for hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenaline glands axis. Over here, the HPA axis slows down, and the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex come into play. Here, the prefrontal cortex, also known as the PFC, which plays a role in attention, impulse, inhibition, perspective memory, and cognitive flexibility, along with the hippocampus, which plays a role in learning and memory, together interpret if a situation is a threat or not. The hippocampus is closely connected to the amygdala, whose role is the detection of threat stimuli and the activation of necessary behaviors to counter the response. Then we have the locus coeruleus located in the brainstem, which releases norepinephrine. There you have the biological response. So now you can do an overlay of a mind chart along with the biological way of looking at it also. It's important also to understand that there are 3 phases to anger. First you have the build-up, then you have the explosion, and then you have the post-explosion, or also called the aftermath. The build-up is as anger builds up. The explosion is as you went and as it goes on, and the post-explosion aftermath are things that happen after that as you cool down. Here we also have to come to a realization that most of the time anger is a secondary emotion. Even though it might be a reaction, it generally is secondary. There also is a primary emotion below that, which could be sadness, fear, disappointment. And then distinguishing anger in definitions, anger, hostility, and aggression are 3 separate things. Anger is an emotion, hostility is an intention, and aggression is a behavior. We will be looking more in depthly into anger in future episodes. And that's it for this particular episode of the Wayne Lamos podcast, recorded for community and recorded for you. Do look out for the next episode, Understanding Different Types of Anger. Till then, this is Wayne Lamos, your host. Thank you for tuning in.